All right, we have made it to Friday. Got an amazing show, as usual, planned for you guys, at least in my opinion. Our game day picker is way better than the actual college game day picker, even though I think the Timothée Chalamet guy is a really good actor. And I think we figured out the connection, why they're bringing him on. We'll get to that later. But David Pollack's going to join us, one of the best guest pickers out there. But first, guys, this just got reported. I saw it on 3. Apparently, Pete Thamels reported it. Something going down with Mike Gundy is in a standoff with Oklahoma State over the future of his coaching contract. I want to read a little bit of this article by Andrew Graham from On 3. He says, Oklahoma State and head football coach Mike Gundy are at an impasse over his contract going forward. Pete Thamel reports. Gundy, they went 3-9. In response, the administration wants to restructure his contract and cut his salary, Gundy has apparently told people, but they haven't brought forth finalized details. His current contract is a rolling 5-year deal. His base salary was $7.75 million this year. It says if Gundy doesn't agree to the restructuring deal, Oklahoma State could fire him for cause, Thamel reported. He is owed more than $25 million if fired without cause. So basically, just to put a bow on it, Pete Nakos from On3 reported shortly after Oklahoma State is planning to cut Gundy's base salary and rededicate those funds to going all in on NIL. Should he agree? If Gundy doesn't, they will terminate his contract. Sneaky Pete.
Wait, okay, so he's on a rolling 5-year
rolling
contract.
5-year.
What is that? How many years are left on his contract?
It doesn't say on here.
Michigan did this with Jim Harbaugh, his contract was up.
Yeah.
If this guy, if his contract's not up, what are you're just going and begging him to restructure it?
I'm guessing it, but we say that on one hand, but then they say if they don't restructure it, that they're going to be able to fire him with cause.
What does that mean?
Is there some sort of clause in his contract where they say if we want to restructure this and you don't agree to the restructuring, then you're fired?
Or is it based on past behavior that?
I think they would have. I think they would have fired him already for that if that was the case. But maybe they had a lot of hype going into this year. This happened to Jim Harbaugh, right, where they went in there and restructured the deal, cut his base salary too, I think, but it wasn't to rededicate whatever they cut to going all in on NIL. My question is, and if any Oklahoma State fans in the chat or anybody that knows wants to chime in, so you can say, hey, you're on a current deal, rolling 5-year deal, whatever that means. You're on a rolling 5-year deal. We want to restructure it, but if you don't want to restructure it, then we can fire you for not restructuring it? What kind of contract is that?
Is this just the cause is just because you won 3 games?
Yeah, this makes zero sense to me. I don't know how you could do that.
It's kind of a mystery to me too, but again, I don't know what exactly the verbiage is in his original contract, because to me that doesn't make it sound like, hey, we know you did something. We're not going to say what you did to get you fired, but if you don't agree to this, then we're going to fire you with cause.
I hate that stuff. It's like if somebody, if the institution should have already fired the head coach for cause, then you should have fired him no matter if they had a great season or a bad season.
I agree with that 100%.
What are we doing?
But do we know that's what it is, though?
No.
Is there something maybe in his contract now?
I know nothing other than what you told me.
Yeah, I know nothing other than what
I know he's 40. I know he's 40 and he's a man.
I know that my Big 12 projections, thanks to Oklahoma State.
Which, you know what, we actually, I think our buddy Cody made the heat grid of how we did on our conference ones. They're really good until you get to the Big 12.
That's next week.
It's really good.
Also, nice sweater, 2 days ago.
Yeah,
appreciate it, man.
Another one.
Sweater guys.
Do you have a place to put the beer in that one or not?
In my mouth.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm not going to
make a joke, Jake.
David Pollack joins us to preview the conference championship games this weekend and make our picks. We discuss the consequences of losing said championship game, should teams be in or out. And we give you our best bets with locks, leans, and dogs. I'm Jake Crain, and it's a Flamin' Dragon Friday here at Crain and Company. And somebody broke Blaine's car window, so he's already pissed. Conference championship games need to matter. And with a top 4 seed and a bye awaiting for some if they win, we know there is a reward. But the better question is, should there be a punishment for losing that game outside of not getting the reward for winning? Well, to me, the answer is yes, but it's nuanced. In my opinion, if you're a team that is already in the playoff 12 before the conference championship game, losing it should not eliminate you from the playoff, but it should affect your seeding and whether or not you can host in the first round game. Let me give you an example. I don't think SMU should be eliminated from the playoff if they lose to Clemson, but should most likely not host a first round game. Clemson, however, is not in the playoff field before the conference championship game. So if they lose, they should continue to remain out. Let's stay with SMU as an example here. How should we compare them to, let's say, Tennessee, who did not play in a conference championship game if they lose? Well, to me, that answer is pretty easy. You treat SMU's resume as it stands today when they are 11-1 versus Tennessee, who is 10-2, and decide that way. I do want to remind everyone, this is how I would do it. Not what the committee will do, because nobody knows what they're going to do, regardless of what they say. Now, where my methodology gets a little bit hairy is, what does that mean for Boise State, who's already in the field as a group of 5 team and is actually slated to get a top 4 seed as it stands today? So are they viewed as a team from a top 4 conference if they lose to UNLV still? Well, to maintain consistency in my eyes, they should still be in. And given the 11 seed, as UNLV would then get the auto bid and get the 12th seed. I did say earlier that we don't know what the committee would do, but I do feel strongly there is no way in hell that they're going to bounce Bama for Boise State. I can understand why they would exclude Boise State as well, but that would be a dark spot, saying that it's not smart to play in the conference championship game or de-incentivize teams to want to play in that game. We've heard coaches complain about that. Either way, I want the conference championship games to be important, and I want it to be viewed as a reward, not a humongous risk. So I have to keep the same energy across the board in that format. It's just part of being consistent. And we want to know what you think, because this is a big deal. Let us know in the comments. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback. My brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crain. Cohn, and it is Flaming Dragon Friday. Go ahead and play the graphic. My mind's all over the place right now. Trying to get this. Go ahead and play it. All right, set it. What's the number?
Flaming Dragon!
0.5, so I'm trying to steal my car, please.
Okay. If you don't know, we are not allowed to use his government name after the graphic plays. We only got one. All right. And David, you've done a really good job of reminding me.
Okay.
Here lately, we've been really, really good. We can't say it once. If we say it once, the overhits.
Perfect game.
People, when you call in, I know you're going to try and bait me. The phone lines are going to open 2:45 p.m. Central. We want to hear from you. But Cohn, when it comes to the repercussions of losing the conference championship game, if you are in the field before the game, that's a big deal to point out. Clemson, not in the field. Arizona State, Iowa State, not in the field, but the winner of that game will be in. If you are already in the 12 as it stands before the conference championship game, what do you think is the right punishment, or how far could you go, or do you just base it purely on circumstance?
Man, I'm really torn on this, because the conference championship games need to serve as a pillar for the sport. Not just a pillar for entry into the college football playoff, that should go without saying, but also it should mean something to win your conference and to play in your conference championship game. It means something to win your division in the NFL and in the MLB. It means something to win your region in high school football moving forward into the state playoffs. So these are important contests to me. At the same time, I understand Rhett Lashley's comments this week where he said, hey, the team magically got COVID and we couldn't play in the ACC championship game this week. Guess what? We'd be in the college football playoff. How would it be fair to exclude us from it if we move forward and we lose? The flip side of it, though, is this is a fantastic weekend of football where we gain new information, or as Ward Manuel and the College Football Playoff Committee call it, data points. We're going to get a new data point for a lot of teams this weekend, and I can't wait for it. SMU playing Clemson is a matchup we should have gotten in the regular season of the ACC. We didn't get it. We also didn't get to see them play Miami. We didn't get to see Clemson and Miami play each other. Those are matchups we should have seen. And yes, more people are going to watch SMU play Clemson with interest this weekend than they did when SMU played Nevada or Houston Christian. And I think you can take the information that you get this weekend, just like we did when Indiana played their big game against the Buckeyes, and we can use that information in determining whether or not this is one of the 12 best teams in the country. My bigger worry is that the College Football Playoff Committee, if they watch SMU play this weekend and they legitimately don't think SMU is a top 12 team, which is their only responsibility, the committee's only job is to pick the 12 best teams. If they say, we don't think this team is a top 12 team, then what's going to happen when they move them out is They will get accused of brand bias because it's going to be Alabama who slips in. And maybe that charge will be accurate. I'm not saying that they're not corrupt and that's the reason they picked them. I'm just saying there could be a legitimate case where they leave SMU out because they don't think they're one of the 12 best teams and they think they're just doing their job, and they're going to get buried for brand bias, and then no one is going to want to play in conference championship games, just like Lane Kiffin said a few weeks ago.
Well, so and again, you articulated that perfectly for what you're saying, but I almost, and I hate to oversimplify things or dumb it down to a yes or no answer. Do you believe overall, because I want to throw a scenario after this at you and see what you think. Do you think if SMU loses this game by 3 points or by 23 points, that they should be out of the college football playoff?
No. I think that there's a chance the committee will put them out. Just like we saw last year with Florida State.
Oh, who knows the committee? I'm asking you, David Cohn, they call you, you're in charge. If SMU loses this game, should they be out of the playoff? Because to me,
if they get drugged, for 4 quarters, lose by 20 plus, do you keep them in the playoff?
Well, I'll say the same thing I said last year about Alabama jumping Florida State. I think a more compelling playoff matchup could be made if SMU goes into the game against Clemson and loses by 40 points. I really believe that. But then again, I think the same thing could be said for an Indiana team who's not having to risk it this weekend. The more interesting point you made is the Boise State.
Let's
say SMU loses and they still stay in, but they have to travel instead of hosting because the seating does get rearranged. And to your point, while you would be negatively affected for risking it in a conference championship game, at some point, Clemson moves, these teams move up. The seeding has to change. There's only so many spots. So let's just say SMU stays in even though they lost and they have to travel in the first round of the playoffs. The Boise State point is more interesting to me. Like, no, I don't think Boise State should still be in a 12-team college football playoff if they lose to UNLV.
And see, that's where, and again, like you guys know I love consistency. Can we bring up the bracket? Bring up the bracket, not the rankings, the college football playoff bracket. Because I want to have this up for a reference point, but before we get to the chat too. So, to me, I understand the way that I'm explaining that and saying SMU shouldn't be out or you shouldn't eliminate a team from the playoff that is already in the 12. When you put Boise State in that would be saying that if Boise State lost, you shouldn't eliminate them, right? That they, not going to get that 12th overall seed or whatever, or depending on what happens with UNLV, that would bump Bama out. I don't think Boise State is better than Bama. But if I say that about SMU, and look where Boise State is, guys, it's not like it's Boise State and UNLV playing for the 12 seed, whoever wins that game. We're sitting here saying that's the Big 12. They got Boise at 10.
And in all fairness, we didn't rank Boise
we
that
didn't
high
rank.
in
No,
ours,
this is theirs.
Right? Like
this is theirs.
Like Boise may make it in our bracket, right? But we didn't rank them that high off the jump, which deals with what you're talking about.
And we say, oh, they're a group of 5 team. Well, they're being treated as if they win the winner of a top 4 conference. So we can't say, well, they're not Power 4. They are put in the top 4. The bracket we're looking at right now has Arizona State out of the Big 12. That's a quote-unquote Power 4 conference, right? If they win, that would be a 12 seed if Boise wins. So not only is Boise not the auto bid just because they're G5 and they're the last auto bid, they're actually looked at as a top 4 conference in the country because the committee put them at 12 early. That was what we had talked about. So to me, that is where my methodology, you could say, well, Jake, we're not going to get the 12 best teams if Boise State is not eliminated from the playoff if they lose. But I am willing, because I want the conference championship game to matter to other coaches, because what if we run into this scenario? And it's kind of a little bit of what Lashley said. What if SMU loses the game to Clemson by a touchdown and they're eliminated from the college football playoff? What if next year in the same scenario, let's say SMU's in the exact same spot they are right now, and Brett Lashley goes, no, we do not accept the invite to the conference championship game. Mm-hmm. We are refusing to play in it. Please go to the next team. Send Miami in there or whatever. I mean, why would you not do that? Because to me, again, conference championship games should matter. I don't want to be afraid to play in them. But if I know that we just went 11-1, and regardless of that, when you have 9-3 teams sitting here in the back end, and I'm in a Power 4 conference that we're paying our way in to go, there's a 50-50 chance I'm going to get left out of the playoff. That's not a crazy thing to say, you know what? No, we're not going to play in it, not because we're scared, but you guys have put us in a situation that has made my team more vulnerable to not be able to win a national
championship. And the tough ask for Boise State is that you're going to be facing a team you already beat in the season. And this is also true for Georgia, even though their stakes are a little higher because I think they're in either way. But you're having to face a team you already beat in the regular season in your conference championship game. Tough to beat those teams twice.
I'm going to ask you both this. Are we going to see something in college football maybe soon that they're just going to get rid of conference championship games?
Well, that's what we were talking about.
I hope not. I really hope not. What I would like to do, and I think something that could maybe ease this, and I put this out on social media, is why do we not have kind of a middle ground to where you take the 12 best teams with computer metrics, the ones we've put out there, and whoever the top 4 teams are in that 12 get the bye. They can be from the same conference. It can be Oregon can be 1, Ohio State can be 2. Doesn't matter. They're both in the Big Ten. They get that bye because they're a top 4 overall team. But also, whoever wins the conference championship game of the best 4 conferences, not 5 auto bids, 4, gets an automatic spot into the 12. But it doesn't necessarily guarantee you a 1 through 4 because what's going to happen is a lot of times the teams that finish 1 through 4 are going to be the teams that win the conference championship game. So you're really not, you could actually have less automatic bids that way because the same team that won the conference championship, like if Oregon was number 1 in that 1 through 4 computer metric ranking, if they beat Penn State in the Big Ten, not only do they get a 1 through 4 seed in the 1 seed, but you also don't have another automatic bid because they won the Big Ten Conference. I think that would be the best way to go about it, in my opinion.
You can bet your bottom dollar if Boise State loses this game, they're out.
No, they will be out. But I can't sit here. I'm not one of these guys that's going to contradict myself. I'm not on the playoff committee. I'm not going to waffle each week. If I'm going to sit here and have the same energy and say, this is the format, this is what I believe, conference championship games should matter, and I sit here and say if SMU loses, they should still be in the playoff, and SMU's sitting at what? 8? I got to sit here and say Boise's sitting at 10. It's because I think they ranked Boise too high too early, and that's something we talked about when they gave them just coincidentally, when the first college football playoff ranking came out, we got a 12-team playoff. Where was Boise State at? 12. So I think they ranked them a little bit too high early, but I got to keep the same energy with Boise that I would for SMU or it makes me a hypocrite. Now, do I think Bama would slaughter Boise State? Probably. I think they would beat him and probably beat him pretty bad, but I'm not going to change the energy. I just want consistency. I can't sit up here and clamor and cry for consistency and then not be consistent when I dole out the methodology I think that we should be doing.
All right, I agree. All right, Chad, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you donate, it's on topic. It will get read on this Flaming Dragon
What's the
Friday.
poll?
The poll is who will win Saturday, Texas are them Bulldogs, Georgia.
Yep.
Ooh, it's going to be a close one. Let's go to Mason Palazzolo. What's up, Mace? If Georgia loses by a large margin, how would that work in the playoff? They will get 3 losses. Would Ole Miss get over Georgia then?
This would be a great segue question to our B block because we're about to get into some what-if scenarios. So hold your water a little bit for me, Mason.
Mason Palazzolo.
Mason Palazzolo. I hope we said that right. Blame this. There we go. There it is.
Ah, we did it, guys.
We
finally did it.
David, I'm sorry. I
Deserving.
apologize.
After this morning, I deserve that.
Yeah, you're right. You know, I kind of feel good.
$2 donation from Blaine Crane's Lisp. Great. It says, odds SMU falls behind Bama with a close loss.
Man, again, it's hard for me to tell you what I think they're going to do when I don't know what goes into the cake. I would keep SMU in if it was me. That has nothing to do with personal fandom. I just went on the diatribe of why I would do it. Now, if I had to guess, if you put a gun to my head and said, tell me what you think they're going to do, SMU loses. Are they going to keep them out? I would say they'd put Bama ahead of SMU.
I agree.
Let's go to Papa John. He says, there's no incentive to playing in the conference championship nor scheduling top 25 matchups. All they look at is W and L columns.
Other than playing in great football games.
Well,
isn't that something that the football players on the field still want to do and still want to be part of? Isn't that something that the fans still want to see? I saw Shane Beamer complaining about their out-of-conference schedule when all 3 of his losses this year were in conference, and your out-of-conference was Wofford, Akron, and Old Dominion. And then you had a great win over Clemson at the end of the year, but he was acting like they lost to Clemson and that kept him out. You played Wofford, Akron, and Old Dominion. How tough is your out-of-conference schedule, guy?
Well, I don't buy into the conference championship game. Like, there's a great reward for that. Like, look at Oregon. Oregon's been undefeated all year. They're in the number 1 spot. If they lose to Penn State is going to get the bye, and Oregon's going to go to 5. There's a reward for it. So I think playing in it with the reward is great. But what is going to de-incentivize people from wanting to play in it isn't the reward. It's the punishment, because that's the risk. That's the negative aspect. That's the 50-50 chance. So I'm not in the camp of, oh, nothing good. They don't matter anymore. There's nothing that matters in the conference championship game. That's not entirely true. The problem is on the back half of you don't know what happens if you lose it, and there's been no solid, concrete answer from Word Manual or the committee on what is going to happen when you lose it.
Let's go to Tyler Siskey. What's up, Sisk?
Siskey's in there?
Yeah, when will we stop pretending this isn't all about money? We all know it's going to be the 4 Big Ten and 4 SEC, or they will take their ball and go home.
Well, to quote, and again, and shout out to Coach Siskey, one of the best coaches I ever worked with. He did an incredible job, incredible football mind. I'll say this. We've sat on here and said, this is a TV show. I literally compared it to The Bachelor, and it's a business. How many times have we used the example? You think colleges really want to educate you? No, they want that tuition check. Educating you is just a side effect of getting that tuition check. It's a billion-dollar industry. So, yeah, you follow the money, you're probably going to have a chance to know the result. I think that's how the bookies always know what's going to happen. But just because it's like that doesn't mean I got to like it.
Yeah, no, I get it. And certainly I think we should all keep a keen eye out for corporatism in all aspects of our life, not just in college football. At the same time, when we say, well, they're just making the matchups that are going to get the most eyeballs and make the most money, a lot of times those are the best matchups, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
there is a lot of crossover.
I was doing some research today on the Michigan-Alabama Rose Bowl last year. And it went to overtime, 27-20 final. It made a lot of money because it was 2 great teams battling each other through 4 quarters and overtime.
Yeah. All right. We're going to get back to the chat. The phone lines are going to open right when we get off with David Pollack. Actually, they're going to open while we're on with DP, 2:45 p.m. Central, 1-855-236-3228. But I want to swivel now to some of these scenarios because they're fascinating. We each picked a team on, if you're this team, what do you want to have happen that can help you? The team I decided to take was Tennessee. What's the big question around Tennessee right now? How can we get to a host spot? Mm-hmm. Right? They sit what, David? They're 9?
Right now in this one, they're 7.
No, in the bracket. Let's pull the bracket. Pull the bracket back up.
Keep the bracket back up. Which would be the first team to travel.
Yes. So the 9 seed is the first team to go on the road. It's the last non-host spot. So I've had Tennessee fans ask me, what do we want to have happen? What is our best case scenario? And again, I don't know exactly what the committee is going to do, but I find it a lot more interesting when we're arguing against big brands, right? Because I think that does leave more up to the committee because, you're not, you can be in a good way either way what you decide to do with Tennessee or some of these teams. So if you're a Tennessee fan, the first thing you need to be rooting for is for Penn State to lose. Not only lose, but get their ass beat pretty bad in front of God and everybody on TV. I actually think, the second thing is you want Georgia to lose. But I personally think, and David, I want to know where you stand on this as well. If Penn State loses, there's a lot better chance of Tennessee moving up a spot and maybe Penn State going behind Tennessee than there is if Georgia loses to Texas because Georgia has the head-to-head against Tennessee. So the first thing you want to see is Penn State to lose. The second thing you want to see is Georgia to lose. Maybe they could put Georgia behind Tennessee. Seen them put teams behind teams that won the head-to-head that they've beaten before. And again, with the committee, who knows? And the last thing, I think you want SMU to lose. I don't think you want SMU, who is 1 spot behind you? At 8, you're at 7 in the rankings, not the bracket, but SMU is 8, you're 7. You don't want to give SMU the chance to jump you in case Penn State were to lose and you were going to move up 1, but SMU wins, and since you didn't play, they leapfrogged that spot. So those are the 3 things in that order that I think Tennessee fans need to have happen.
Yeah, so I mean, Tennessee, 1 spot that's going to be taken ahead of them for hosting is Notre Dame, right? And Notre Dame's not going to play, so you can't jump them.
You're not going to jump Notre Dame.
To your point, you need to hope that, hey, even if Georgia loses, yes, they have the head-to-head over you, but they will have picked up an additional loss in the conference championship game. Same with Penn State that gets them to 2 losses. Back to the original point that we opened with today, I'm interested to see, will the committee punish those teams who lose, not just in terms of being out of the playoff, but in terms of how far they fall. For instance, if Penn State loses to Oregon and right now they're ranked 3, do they just move to the first available spot? Yeah. Right? Because they're already ranked ahead of Notre Dame. So does that put them 5, Notre Dame 6? Let's say Georgia loses to Texas. That puts them 7. If the committee's going to have that mindset, Tennessee has no shot at jumping the couple teams that are ahead of them, right? But they'll still be in the playoff, and they'll just have to travel in round 1.
Which they already are.
So let's get to Alabama. What do they need to do to make the college football playoff? Some people say just be themselves, just be Alabama.
Show up, have the logo.
But look, you do want SMU to beat Clemson, right? Like you don't want to force the committee into the situation that we just talked about where Clemson with 3 losses wins their conference championship game. They're going to go to the playoff, and then you're forcing the committee to either keep an SMU team that picked up their second loss and punish them in the conference championship game or move them behind Alabama. A few other things, like I don't think Alabama would be too angry if Boise State lost.
No.
Right? Like a group of 5 still has to get in, but if you force the Boise State UNLV game, which is tonight, right? If you force that to be a play-in game, which is not necessarily. I mean, Army's still going to play Tulane. They only have 1 loss. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens if Boise State loses. But I think at least Alabama would get rid of one team that's in front of them just to complicate matters a little bit more. Another interesting thing is, what if Texas handles Georgia in the SEC championship game and we have a similar situation we were just talking about with Tennessee? Now, Georgia would pick up their 3rd loss. Granted, it would be in the SEC championship game where they risked it, but Bama then has the head-to-head. At least then Bama could say, hey, in terms of at least they'd be forcing the people in the committee room to have these sorts of conversations when they say, hey, Georgia went on the road to Tuscaloosa and lost to Alabama, and now they have the same amount of losses.
Well, do we have a precedent there? Because they have, and I know Penn State has a better overall record than Ohio State, but Ohio State beat Penn State. So would they treat Penn State? How would they treat Penn State and Ohio State if Penn State loses? It's the same situation, basically, that you just laid out, but within kind of the Big Ten. Let me ask you this, Coney, too, quickly before we get over here to Flaming Dragon.
You can call me Blaine. You already lost.
No, I'm going to call you Flaming Dragon. What happens if Clemson wins? If Clemson beats SMU and UNLV beats Boise, does the Big 12 get the 3 seed? Does it go Big 12 3? UNLV 4, Clemson 12? Or do they put Clemson at 4, Big 12 at 3, UNLV at 12?
Well, that's a good question because when this ranking was made last week, it's Arizona State 15, Iowa State 16. They're playing each other for the Big 12 championship game, and then Clemson 17, but they were just coming off of a loss to South Carolina. Does a win then in the conference championship game sort of reset the situation, which could propel them ahead of the 2 teams that are playing for the Big 12 championship game?
That's, again, these are questions we're just going to have to find out. That's why I promise you the committee is really hoping Clemson doesn't win and UNLV wins, because that throws off not only,
they're hoping Boise wins.
They're hoping Boise wins. They're hoping this doesn't happen. The scenario I just laid out doesn't happen.
All right, my team's Miami, and to be honest with it, you're cooked.
Yeah, we look. I
mean, unless John Taffer shows up for the committee, I don't know how things are going to go.
The guy from Bar Rescue?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only guy at this point. We don't know what happens behind the doors of the committee. I mean, is it a dictatorship or is it kind of a jury? Other people want Miami in. Does Ward Manuel have to get up there and say, well, everybody wanted Miami in, so we're putting them in? I just don't see any scenario right now where Miami can actually make the playoffs.
Well, and we went through it. I mean, we were like, oh boy, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, trying to find ways to pin strings to pictures and do all this. I don't see it. The only way is if the committee lied. Just flat out lied, or they were setting up to do this. But you know when I would believe that they would pull the rug out at the end? If the roles were reversed. If Miami was 11 and Bama was 12, I think there could be a chance there would be a change. But not since Bama's 11 and Miami's 12. I just think there's no way for Miami. I think there's no way for South Carolina.
Is it up for votes?
Because here's the thing. Even if Clemson beats SMU, and let's say they beat them badly, and the committee says, you know what? That SMU team is just not better than Miami. Miami is better than them. I know that SMU played an extra game. They risked it in the conference championship, but they're not as good. We're going to move them behind Alabama and Miami. They still don't move up from 12 because Clemson swaps with them, and Arizona State and Iowa State, one still has to get in, and they'd be the 12th spot.
No, I think Miami's cooked. We said it was going to come down to would 2 ACC schools get in, and I'm not seeing it. The only way I think it could still happen is if Clemson beats SMU and SMU stays in.
Miami has the brand. I mean, they have the brand. They got the players. You got the number one offense in the nation. You got Cam Ward.
Well, obviously, it didn't happen in the last ranking release. So why would I believe
your brand's just not as big
it would happen now? I just wish they were more responsible. But before we get David Pollack on here, I want to talk to you about being responsible, being a responsible man. All right, if you want a multivitamin that is packed with 33 key ingredients so you can look like David Pollack, all right, you need to check out Responsible Man. It helps support your immune system, sharpen your brain, keep your heart and muscles strong. It's also a Daily Wire Ventures company, so you know it's made right here in the good old USA. The vitamins don't smell bad, don't smell like they've been in that peach that James was in on the ocean for so long. They're minty. They're not Cone. Why do you think Cone's 6'7"?
Who would have thought James?
Rumor has it he may be 6'8".
Best shape of my life.
Yeah. So
do an inch overnight.
And right now, you can take advantage of Responsible Man's Cyber Week sale. Get 60% off your order. Just head over to responsibleman.com. Use code BOOSTER, BOOSTER at checkout. But hurry, guys, the deal won't last long. Remember, a strong America needs strong men. And strong men start with Responsible Man. That's responsibleman.com. Code BOOSTER for 60% off. And Blaine may get you one of those sweaters, too. Be the man your team needs you to be with Responsible Man. Well, I can't think of a man that's more responsible and a better special guest picker for this weekend than our friend, former star, just star in general.
Current star.
David Pollack.
Yeah.
What
there
is
he
up,
is.
dude?
What's up, dude? Thanks, y'all, for having me in. What a great sell on the vitamins there. You're just a pro now, bro.
Listen, look, I do what I can over here. We take the ad read super duper cereal around here. DP, I want to ask you just a couple of the generic things we've been tossing around before we get into these games. You know, what is your view on the playoff rankings as they sit right now with what happened with Alabama and Miami? And then what do you think should happen to the loser of a conference championship game?
I've gone back and forth on this. I don't think every conference is created equally.
Yeah.
So that means every loss in the conference championship game isn't created equally. I think how the game's played and what the result is, you know, obviously with SMU will be a team that we'll talk about. Like, just if they did lose to Clemson and they were in a position where they have that loss, that extra loss in the conference championship game. It was a great game back and forth. Does that change the way the committee looks at it? So I think there's a multitude of ways. Man, it's going to tick me off every year. I'm going to always try not to lose my patience with the committee, but we're going to, because it's not going to make sense. And it's never going to make sense because you've got 12 different people with 12 different backgrounds, with 12 different sets of eyeballs that see things differently than you do and that see things differently than each other does. And some people like the bass, some people like the treble, some people like the personality, right? Like there's going to be all different walks and all different types. And so it's a frustrating thing to look at, but I would say that as long as it's not a beatdown in any of these games, I don't know how you punish someone for going to their championship game. Georgia got punished a year ago for playing a really good team in the SEC championship game. Still, everybody thought they were one of the 4 best teams, but they're out of the mix. And I hope we're in a world where that doesn't exist anymore.
DP, I agree with you. And again, we're referencing teams that are already in the playoff, not like Clemson who has to win to get in, or like UNLV who has to win to get in, or whatever. It's the teams already in there. I do want to ask you this because I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. We've talked about structurally what metrics we would want to determine the top 12. But what you don't hear people talk about, and Flamin' Dragon brought this up earlier, what is the process that the committee goes through to reach a decision? We know the way a jury works in the United States. There's a foreman of the jury, but he doesn't have the ultimate power to decide if somebody's guilty or not guilty. So what happens if, in the committee, you say 10 people, 4 people think this and 6 people think that, or 5 people think this and 5 people think that, and it's kind of hung? Does Ward Manuel just be able to go in there? Is he the guy that can say, well, regardless, this is what's going to happen? So we don't even know the process of how things are decided. At least I don't. Maybe I haven't, seen it and they've talked about it, but I don't know.
I've actually done the mock in the rooms. They do a mock and you go in there and you sit down and you get a season and you take your teams and you make debates on, your points, and people come in with different viewpoints, and you literally sit down and you talk about these teams in clusters. So they come in like little tiny clusters of 3, and you can talk about them and you compare them to each other. And listen, the criteria we have is pretty simple, and the criteria we have would solve a lot of the disputes. Head-to-head's a big part of the criteria. Like, that's listed as the number one option. Common opponents. Like, when you start to go to Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and those next 3 teams in, you have head-to-head protocols. You have common opponent protocols. Alabama and Ole Miss played a lot of the same teams. Ole Miss beat Georgia at a higher rate and was dominant the whole game against Georgia. Ole Miss destroyed South Carolina. Alabama barely beat South Carolina. So some of the criteria that's in place right now that they've talked about are right there in front of us, but they're not used and they're not talked about. And so that's where people start, getting angry, and people start talking about the brands and why does this team get this advantage and this team doesn't. And, you see a lot of teams in college football right now that have they have a strong resume as a record, but it's not as a strength of schedule. And we all know that. And we all try to take that into account, but there's no formula to take it into account correctly. I have a proposal. To me, this makes this very easy, or makes it easier to do the cross promotion or cross pollination. Every team in every conference plays at least one team from another conference. So if you're an SEC team, you play an ACC team. You play a Big 12 team. You play a Big 10 team. Every single crossover matchup now will matter. We'll have more data points. We'll have more strength of schedule. We'll have teams with more losses. We'll have more common opponents. So I think that would cure up some of this stuff where we're going, haven't lost yet, haven't beat anybody either, but the record looks really, really good. Oh, they've been dominant against so-and-so. Haven't played anybody. I think that could help fix some of those conversations and debates we have.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit like the NFL and Major League Baseball with the divisions. I'm so glad you pointed out comparing teams with each other within the conference, because I've been saying that for a few weeks. Anytime we can use the conference's own tiebreaker scenarios, let's go ahead and use those and not pit them against themselves, but that's how those conferences would decide who goes to the championship game. Why can't we use those also for the postseason? But David Pollack, you're one of the greatest players in the history of this sport, a gamer of the highest order. You strapped it up every single week, gave it the best you had. Does it frustrate you to hear coaches and fans alike question the importance of these conference championship games moving forward? Or do you just see it as a chess match and it's just a strategy that's going to have to be reckoned with?
Well, it's kind of like all of these awesome rivalries that we loved for so long, and then they just disappear and they're gone. And you kind of get frustrated as a fan, but you also used to love the sport from a purist standpoint when the kids were fighting for the name on their helmet, not the money in their bank account. So it continues to change. We need to continue to change. We need to evolve. At some point, you want to make this a little bit less confusing. And another thing that drives me nuts. Okay, I play defense. Y'all know this. I'm not the brightest dude in the world. I'm so sick and tired of seeing rankings and then seedings and numbers on top of numbers. Like, can you just give me one good formula? Like, can we go, if you're the Big Ten and you are in the SEC and you run the sport, like, let's be honest, from a revenue standpoint, like, they run the sport. Figure out a way to get AFC, NFC. Figure out a way to file these teams in to make this easier, to make this not as complex, not as complicated, because the conference championship games, Rhett Lashley said it. He was like, what if my team got COVID? I wouldn't even have to play this game. We're in the college football playoff. And he's right. And it's like, okay, well, it's just there's too much of that stuff, man. Too much confusion, too much annoying things, and we just continue to lose some of the things we love about the sport.
No doubt. Do you have anything before we do our pick'em?
Well, we have a $5 donation here from Genty for Life. He wants to know, David, do you think there's SEC bias in the playoff committee?
I think there is good football bias. So if that means that there's SEC bias, sure. I think there's better teams consistently in the SEC. And this year is a good example of, like, you want to run that gamut in the SEC, it's a tough one, man. Like, y'all have talked about it all year long. Like, Vanderbilt's a good team. South Carolina comes out of nowhere. They're a good team. I don't think Missouri's an elite team by any stretch, but they're good enough to beat you and have great players. So I think they're a great league. I think they have the best top to bottom league in the conference. So if that's the case, then yes.
Well, can I throw this in here too, but before we get to the games? Because we have a bad problem, I think, in media in general, not just sports media, in not understanding that multiple things can be true at the same time. I think the SEC has earned the benefit of the doubt that they are typically the best conference in the country over a span of time.
Yeah.
A trust factor, right? Now, that doesn't mean that every year they are the best conference in all of football. There are some years where maybe the Big Ten's better, right? And it's not a lot, but the SEC has earned the benefit of the doubt. But that also can mean that the ACC is a good conference, a quality conference. The Big 12 is a fun, quality conference. Just because we can say the SEC is a great conference isn't saying everybody else sucks. We have this bad thing of, oh, well, the SEC is the best conference. So you're basically saying everybody else is just beneath the SEC and nobody's any good, or nobody can beat the SEC if they play. And then they point to, well, this game and this game and this game. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in aggregate, I think the SEC has earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to being the best conference over a period of time. And we should be able to use that while also saying, look, Illinois can go beat Missouri. That wouldn't shock me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just, for some reason, it's either got to be one or the other. We see this in politics, too. You're either heaven or hell. It's either great here and awful here, or awful here and great there. I hate when we get into that problem.
It also depends on how you define what the best conference is. Did you have the single most dominant team that year who
or
won the
best?
championship?
Yeah.
In 2022, Georgia was that, throttled TCU, won the national championship. But the Big Ten had two teams make a 14 college football playoff, so they had more teams at the top. Or is it, hey, which four worst teams in your conference could go beat the four worst teams in another conference? It opens up a whole conversation.
Hey,
but
I'll say this, guys, to that, I think the gap's smaller than it used to be. And I think the parity in college football is as great as it's ever been. And it ain't going nowhere because the transfer portal has changed that. NIL has changed that. So the talent ain't going to sit on the bench at these major schools anymore to go say, because Kirby and Nick's sales pitch for years, come here, we will develop you so you get paid the big bucks in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And it worked. It absolutely worked. And they did it. And they put them in the league. Now guys are like, wait a minute. I can get $3 million over the next 3 years anyways? I ain't going anywhere. Like, I'm going over there to get my money that's guaranteed. The NFL's not guaranteed. So I think that there's more parity than there's been because of the transfer portal and because of NIL.
Agreed.
No doubt. All right, David Pollack, we're going to pick these top 5 matchups this weekend. No one better to be here with us than you. We're going to start with Boise State and UNLV, and this one does have playoff implications. Jake, you go first.
Yeah, and it's at Boise State. I want to let everybody know this is a road game for UNLV. You look at Boise State throughout the season. Genty's been incredibly consistent. They've found ways to win games. They played Oregon close. Special teams really cost them at the end, which I think is kudos to Oregon for their ability to play complementary football. But if you go back and watch this matchup before, we're talking about Texas and Georgia playing again and how much fun that's going to be. I think some people forgot Boise State and UNLV have already played. They played earlier in the season. UNLV probably did a better job against Ashton Genty than anybody else did in the country, including Oregon. The problem was they were so focused on Genty, the quarterback in the zone read game and the run game actually hurt them worse than he's hurt anybody really running the whole season. And also Boise State was 4 for 4 on fourth down. And if you go back and watch it, they caught a lot of breaks in that game. So it would make you think, wow, UNLV gets a second shot at him. UNLV's, gonna catch maybe a couple more breaks than they did last time. And I was really coming in here wanting to pick UNLV. I think UNLV plus 4.5 is a really good bet. But sometimes when you know how to win, you just know how to win. And Boise State, it was ugly, down the stretch. They aren't playing great, but they get UNLV at home. I actually think UNLV goes up in this game early, but Boise State just finds a way. I think they beat them by 4 or kick a field goal late to beat them. Give me Boise to find a way once again throughout a year where we've had chaos and a lack of consistency. Boise State to pick up that 12th win and beat UNLV.
Who you got, Blaine?
I got to go Boise, too. I do like UNLV to cover in this football game. I mean, it's at Boise, and even if they held Ashton Jeanty, he still rushed for 130 yards on 33 carries.
Yeah.
And the quarterback only had 3 carries for 60 yards. So you can tell you how good Ashton Jeanty is on this. But I'm telling you, man, this is going to be a close football game. I love watching UNLV play football, especially from the offensive side. But Boise, close one.
DP, who you taking? And does Ashton Jeanty still have a chance to win the Heisman, or is he going to finish second?
He should have a chance to win it. I would love to see him go off for 300 plus and get to that Barry Sanders mark. And now you start talking about like, hey, nobody can deny him, because if you watch him, he's special. I mean, he's super special. I wish he did it against better competition, because he did it against Oregon, who's a filthy defense, and made them look silly. I'll take Boise. I think with a year like we're having, I would not be surprised if UNLV won, because that's just the kind of year we're going through right now. But not only that, Dirk Cutter's calling plays for Boise State, and if you haven't noticed, he's good. Like they do a good job. They design the passing game. They work the tight end screens. Like they have a nice game plan. It ain't just Jeanty. Like between quarterbacks and tight ends, like I think they've got more than you think, and got a few pass rushers and disruptors on the other side too. So give me Boise on the blue.
All right, I'm going to take UNLV for 3 reasons here. Okay?
I know one of them.
UNLV for 3 reasons. 1, I don't want to be the guy who jinxes Boise State on a clean sweep here on the show, and we know how that goes, boys. 2, it's hard to beat a good team twice in the same season. Like you mentioned, Boise State did win at UNLV earlier in the year. And 3, there is a part of me that wants to see a little bit of chaos for our Sunday live stream that we're going to do.
I love where
some people just want to see the world burn.
Okay, some guys want to see the world burn. I'm usually not one of them, but let's go ahead. All right, next one up, Big 12. Someone's got to win the Big 12.
Yeah.
Someone's got to win it. Why not Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham in year 1 going to play Iowa State, Jake?
Look, I don't know which fan tried to fight Matt Campbell before the year, but it was a great decision to fight him before the season as opposed to 4 games in, because Iowa State plays better. We've talked about this game. We've broken it down. I can talk about Cam Scattaboo. I can talk about Levitt's legs being, I think, a really underrated part of that offense, and Dillingham being smart enough, even as a young guy, to maybe adjust to his personnel, not exactly what he wants to do offensively. I know he wants to throw the ball around a little bit more, but that's not what's best for this team. I'm just a firm believer in momentum. I think Arizona State's been playing with house money. It's been an incredible year. Iowa State's had a fantastic year. I like Rocco Becht. It's a really great story. But I can't bet against these guys, man. I can't do it, right? We talk about Boise finding ways to win, but Arizona State's physicality, that's what I like. I think Scattaboo in kind of embodies their whole team. And if he gets going early in this game, he lifts the rest of this team up. It doesn't matter if you're on offense, if you're on defense, if you're on special teams, or you're the water boy. You're going to play better if Scattaboo's able to have some success early and really set the tone. I think this could be I think it could be a high-scoring game. I think it could be a low-scoring game.
Over-under's at 50 and a half.
It's at 50 and a half. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, but I do like Arizona State to win this game. And, we'll see what happens around them. They could get the 12 seed. Hell, they could get the 3 seed. At the end of the day, give me Arizona State.
Who are you taking?
I think momentum is a real thing. I'll agree with that. Not having Jordan Tyson in this game is going to show up to Arizona State at some point, which is huge. But it's hard for me. As good as Iowa State is, what are they bad at? They're bad at stopping the run, and I promise you Dillingham and Scattaboo are going to pound it at you for 4 quarters. I like Arizona State in this game. You can play the lineup a little bit. I like them 3.5 plus.
DP?
I love what you're saying about Arizona State. I love their toughness. I love Levitt. November, he's been on fire, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. But Tyson is a third of the passing game.
Yeah.
A third. And everything they do they put him in the backfield. They throw quick screens to him. They fake the screens to him. Everything in the passing game goes through zero. Like, that is a real deal. I'm interested to see. And on the other side, man, what's crazy? Before the season, Crain and Co. is doing their show, and everybody's talking about college football, and everybody's getting excited and talking about all the different weapons and all the different receivers and all the different offenses. And you know what everybody talked about before the season? That Iowa State would be the only team in the country with 2 1,000-yard receivers. Everybody had that, right? Yeah. Like Iowa flipping State. They got 2 of them with Higgins and Noel. Like, that's what's crazy. Beck's his numbers always look okay, but he's got something about him. I think it's a barn burner. And if I knew David for sure was going Arizona State, I would easily say the other side right now. So I'd go Iowa State, but there's something to Iowa State. There's something to the running game, even though Kansas State got swallowed up by Iowa State last week and couldn't run the football. But I said early in the week, so I'll stick with it. I wish I knew your pick, but 31-24 Sun Devils.
Ooh,
wow.
Score.
Wow. I love it. Play the 3.5 up.
I love that I'm in his head, though.
Yeah.
I'm in his head on the picks.
I love it.
I think we're in for a really good football game. I think Rocco Beck could play on Sundays one day. The Brock Purdy kid's doing pretty good in the NFL from Iowa State. I'm too emotional about Arizona State to not pick them, man. I love this team too much. I'm not saying go put all your money in the world on them. When Cam Scatterbo runs the football, I just love it. I love how they're built. I love Kenny
Toby
Gillingham.
Gearhart.
I love the energy afterwards.
Ascot,
This guy reminds me of Larry Zonka carrying the football DP. I just love it. So I'm going to go Arizona State as well.
Graphic.
Now that graphic's going to jinx the whole game. So
Congrats, Iowa State.
Next one up, Big Ten championship game. Oregon, only undefeated team, going to play Penn State, not rematch the Buckeyes. You know, Michigan had to go ahead and knock them out of the game. I just remind everybody. Oregon, Penn State. Thank you for the laugh. Who are you taking?
Man, I talked all week. Look, Kodal, Nicky, and this offense can't do what they did against Ohio State. They regress back to old Penn State, take our ball, go home, take the air out of the ball. We're up 10 points. Let's not have fun. Let's not be creative. Let's not take shots. I think it's going to be more like a bachelor party on Broadway this weekend, shots left and right. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. But James Franklin, I think he's a fantastic football coach. There's just something when I look at this head coaching matchup. I think Penn State is going to actually play pretty decent offensively, but I think Will Stein, I think this Oregon offense with Dylan Gabriel will find a way. I came on here yesterday and said I think in a year where we haven't had a ton of great complementary football, when we don't have really an elite team in all three phases, who's been the most consistent? I think it's been Oregon. If the defense hadn't been playing well, they found a way to win. If the offense struggles, they found a way to win. If both of the offense and defense struggle a little bit, the special teams has come through for them. I'm a believer in Dan Lanning. This is a battle of an immovable object versus an unstoppable force with head coaches that haven't won a lot of big games. So give me Oregon, give me Dylan Gabriel. I think the Ducks quack.
You going to take the underdog?
No, I'm not. If Penn State, if we were down 2 and Penn State was wide open in the corner for 3, I'm not passing to it. I'm taking it. Sooner or later, it doesn't matter what you can say. It just matters what you can prove. And they've proven to me they can't win a big football game. And I know Dylan Gabriel. I know Dan Lanning. If there's anybody I trust, it's Dylan Gabriel in big moments. So give me Oregon. The over is a good bet, but I like Oregon to cover in this.
Y'all both like the over.
But coach, I was open. There's a reason you're open.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason.
Exactly right.
Listen, I get it. I understand it. I adhere to the philosophy. It's more about Oregon than it is about Penn State for me. I just think they're really good. I think they're the most complete team. I think their offense is a problem for every single person who wants to play the game of football in the playoffs because the ball comes out of Gabriel's hands so fast. Elite at wide receiver, elite at tight end, elite at quarterback, making his 62nd start, for gosh sake. 62nd. You heard that right. 62. He's 38. But so the experience, the big plays, it's all there. The only reason this game can be close is because the weakness of the Oregon offense is the absolute strength of the Penn State defense. The offensive line for Oregon is not elite. It's not a dominant group. The front seven for Penn State is dominant. They can get after the quarterback. They can get TFLs. And as long as you're not big and physical, I don't really think they can push you around. I don't know that Oregon can push them around. So that's why I think Penn State can hang in the football game. But Penn State's offense, I don't trust them. I haven't for years. It's continued to be the same thing, man. Like I've heard about Allen and Singleton for years, and I've seen him have big games. To me, the only guy on that offense that scares me is Ty Warren. It's nobody out wide.
Yeah.
Like it's nobody. There's nobody that stretches the field out wide like you have on the other side with Tez and Stewart. So I think it's a 30-17 type of game because I think Oregon will get their points because they can do it a multitude of ways, running, throwing, short, throwing deep.
Yeah, really quickly, Cohen. One of the things that I think makes Oregon so dangerous is DP is exactly right. Their offensive line isn't dominant. They can get pushed around a little bit in the run game. But I think Will Stein has the best quick game package in college football when it comes to the pass game. I really believe that. They're able to supplement a lack of running the ball consistently. We saw it, with what they would do with Bucky Irving last year and Tez, and they got Tez back this year. Their passing game, the intermediate to the short, is so well thought out that they can get away with not being dominant in the run game. That's something I think that Will does a really good job.
It's one of the reasons that Bo Nix set the all-time completion percentage passing record.
Yeah, that was one of the knocks against Bo Nix going to the NFL was that they threw it short so much.
He's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But David Pollack, I agree with both of those points. And because of that, that's why I'm not convinced that this will be a high-scoring game. I know that it's going to be indoors, but I still think that this could turn into sort of a classic November Big Ten game where we see those defensive performances really step up and maybe the under will hit. I hope that Penn State embraces this opportunity to go play in this game. I hope that they have the mentality of, yes, we're glad that Michigan beat the Buckeyes so that we get to go and prove to the country who said we only played one big game this year and lost it. We want a chance to go do that rather than having the mentality of, man, we would have just as soon stayed home this week and kept our ranking intact, and we don't want to go play in the conference championship game. I hope that's what they do. I can't pick them, though, for the same reasons you guys said. I have to go with Oregon. Oregon's been so steady and consistent for at least the back 6 weeks of this schedule. But let's see. Let's see what Penn State can do in the conference championship game. That takes us to the ACC.
You know what I want to hear from your mouth? No.
What's
Before
that?
we go ACC, I want to hear this from your mouth, Michigan, go blue. How about Oregon just came into your conference and just said, yeah. Hey, we're going to beat up on Michigan. We're going to beat up on Ohio State and beat up on Penn State. Like, the 3 people that have been running your league, like that have been the best 3 teams, we're just going to come in here with a broom and kind of sweep you out of here. So that's what you're saying?
A couple thoughts on that. One, Michigan's the defending national champion, and they just signed the number 1 player that they've ever signed, and they just beat the Buckeyes. You can't get me down right now. Nice try. And second of all,
going to the Cheez-It Bowl,
Texas,
too.
Hey, Texas trying to do the same thing to your conference, and we'll get to that one here in just a minute. But first, ACC championship, SMU, Clemson. Obviously, we've talked about whether or not SMU is going to get knocked out of the conference championship, or maybe Rhett Lashley just gets them dialed in and they go beat Clemson by 40 and get one of the first 4 byes. How's it going to work out?
SMU picked them, so knew they were going to be here. 11-1. They laughed at me. They pointed at me after the after the BYU game. They threw vegetables at me as I would walk down the street. But here we sit, Rhett Lashley and the boys, 11-1. Come into your trap, take over your trap in the ACC. But Clemson's got to win, dude. Clemson's got to win, and they're not in. Dabo maybe a little bit cringe sometimes. Okay, maybe a lot cringe. All right, he may say some goofy things, but Clemson's been here before, man. He's coached in these big games. He took down Bama. I watched him do it. So Dabo's team's not going to be intimidated. And I do think that Clemson is more battle-tested than what SMU is. They've seen Georgia. They've seen South Carolina, right? They've run up against some big dogs this year. I like Cade Klubnik. I like Maffa. I think Maffa's a Maffa. And when I look at this Clemson defense, I think Peter Woods is a stud, and they got some guys running around there. They can push SMU around a little bit. So they have to have it. They need to have it. People have told them they're not good enough. They just got punked at home by South Carolina with a 12-year-old at quarterback. Give me Clemson and the chaos this weekend. Clemson's going to beat SMU.
I agree. I mean, I'm rolling with Clemson, too. Like, SMU's a Ferrari, but Clemson's an F-250. And, buddy, I'd rather ride in that F-250. I mean, who's SMU's best team they played against? How much do you trust SMU to walk on the field and be ready for this moment? I've seen those guys at Clemson. They played Georgia. All right, they played South Carolina. They know what it looks like.
Lost by 31.
I know, but they're still on the damn field. And I bet that game wouldn't be like that now. And they just played South Carolina, who I'd put up against anybody in the country right now, and Cade Klubnik threw that game at the end. But I know Clemson can get it done on defense. I trust the run game, and I trust Cade Klubnik. Even after that mistake against South Carolina, I'm going Clemson. Give me money line, baby.
Come on, David Pollack. You do it, I'll do it.
I don't like this. I don't like this because I'm thinking I'm going to be the only one picking Clemson.
Me too.
And everybody's going to be on the SMU train, and I'm rooting kind of for chaos. But Jake, I love what you said to start because Dabo's played in 10 ACC championship games. ACC SMU hasn't even played 10 ACC games, period. Period, in the conference. So it's a crazy thing, but the crazier thing to me is, Cade Klubnik, I owe you an apology because I didn't think he was very good. I'm not going to lie. I saw him leave clean pockets repeatedly. I saw him not take shots down the field, not be incredibly accurate. But that son of a gun has absolutely turned it around. And his offensive line has been a jigsaw puzzle of plug and play and injuries. But Clemson, man, and Klubnik in particular, he's steadied the ship. The run game hasn't been consistent. He has. He's about to join Trevor Lawrence and Taj Boyd and Deshaun Watson as the only quarterbacks in the history of Clemson football to throw for 30 touchdowns. He's in that era, and he's got a go-to guy with Williams on the outside now. He's got Wesco. He's got some weapons. I thought the game plan last week was really good. The defense is good. SMU is good, and SMU will be in this game. But I got Clemson 28-27.
Get the ball to Briningstool. Get the ball to Briningstool.
Now I'm in a blender. Now you're in my head.
Do it.
Because I thought for sure you would take SMU. You picked them to go this far. You're not even going to ride with your squad. And I'm not going to sit here on this show and just let it be a clean sweep for Clemson. I thought I'd be the only one to pick them. I'll ride with you, Rhett Lashley. Yeah. Let's go, man. Please don't embarrass me.
SMU.
Please don't embarrass me. Let's go, SMU.
Rhett's going to be pissed at me. I know he watches. But listen,
all right.
SMU should still be in the playoff.
This is going to make up for everything. If they win this and I'm the only one who picked them, this is going to make up.
I'm going 9-3.
Just like that. Totally redeem yourself.
SEC championship game, Texas, Georgia rematch. To Pollack's point earlier about Oregon, Texas trying to come into the SEC year one, win the whole thing. Are they going to do it?
This is the hardest game to pick for me out of any of the ones, including Arizona State and Iowa State, with even with Tyson being out for Arizona State. You know, I've sat here and I've tried to think, all right, what's the difference? What's the difference? What's the difference? We've watched these teams play before. Georgia went to Austin, doubled up Texas. I think you're going to, I wish I could just take the under at 49.5. I think it may be the best bet on the board this weekend. I think they're going to be pretty conservative on offense with what happened last game, right? Most teams lose games, they don't win them. We saw what happened in the turnover battle last time, so I think you're going to get an emphasis on that. There's always an emphasis, but it's going to be double this time. I think you're going to see a lot of ground game early. I think you're going to see Arch Manning on the ground early with a couple pop passes off of it. You know, I've heard people sit here and say, well, look at the way Georgia looked against UMass. Look at the way Georgia looked against Mississippi State. Heard a lot of people say, look at the way Georgia looked before they played Texas last time, and Georgia showed up for that one. And I've heard everybody say, well, Texas lost earlier, and they're at home, so they're going to be the more motivated team. I think people forget Georgia had a chance to win 3 national championships in a row, something we never saw Nick Saban do. And this game they're playing in last year kept them away from that chance. So they've been pissed off about this game long before this season started. So I don't think there's going to be a motivational edge on either side. But we always talk about even Superman has a kryptonite, and Texas has looked dominant, elite. They pushed A&M around like the fat kid on the playground whose mommy always saves him when he gets in trouble.
Not Timmy.
But I think when Texas looks up and they see Georgia, something just hits them a little different. I think that cold chill goes down the spine.
Brian Day, Michigan situation here.
You know, like I said, even Superman has kryptonite. I think Carson Beck is going to have a fantastic game against Texas.
Really?
Fantastic game against Texas.
He just doesn't like watching football.
Outside of that, I like the Bulldogs to win by a touchdown.
All right.
Give me Georgia. Give me Georgia to win it. All right. Give me Kirby to talk his ish with the visor after the game to make it 2 in a row. Texas, you're going to get close. Oh, so close, but no cigar. It's not like Oregon.
Blaine?
I'm torn. I've never had to question what type of a Georgia team's going to show up on Saturday. And with this Georgia team, you know, I do. And I know Haynes King's not going to be a quarterback for the Longhorns. It's going to be a little bit different with Quinn Ewers. Stationary guy is not going to hurt you outside with the run game. We'll see how much Arch Manning plays. But I just believe in Texas, and one of the reasons I believe in them is because of their defense. Mm-hmm. They have one of the best units from the front 7 to the back end in college football. They're fundamental. They know their job. And Carson Beck, even if that win in that Georgia versus Texas game, nobody looked good on offense. Texas turned the ball over, and most of the time Georgia scored. They were on Texas's side of the half anyways. I think Texas is a more complete team. I think Sark's going to know how to adjust from the first time they played. I like Texas in this game. It's going to be close. I think it'll be low scoring as well. Give me Texas by a field goal.
Riding with the Bulldogs, DP?
Love it. I love when there's already a disagreement and we're not going to go like 3 in a row.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because to me, styles always make fights. And the motivation was a big factor in why I picked Georgia to win the first time at Texas, because I thought Georgia was going to be ticked off and angry. Texas now has that, momentum going for them. Very strange to look at this Texas team and to think of where they are, because they are a run first, run second team. Like, this is a Wisner team or bust. They are not they are not bombs away like they were a year ago. Both these quarterbacks have had ups and downs. To me, the biggest difference is I think Texas's defense is elite, the best in the country against the pass. But Styles, I talk about making fights, is they don't fool you. They don't play a bunch of crazy, wacky coverages and combo coverages. Like, Texas is really good at what they do. They don't blitz. They trust their front four. They trust their speed. They tackle really, really well. I think that sets up good for Carson Beck. It didn't last time, but the middle half of the season, when Carson Beck was scrambled, he was awful. I mean, it was not a good 6-game stretch when he had 10 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. But the last 3 dudes, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And I don't think this Texas offense is overly explosive. I think they're good, but I think Georgia's defense can stop the non-aspect of the mobile quarterback, can stop the ground game. I don't think Texas has burners on the outside like we're used to seeing. So I got 24-21 Georgia.
There's a large part of me that wants to take my home state team playing in Atlanta, Kirby Smart's defensive prowess. The defensive coaching calls in that first game were phenomenal to me, even more than just the dudes on the field. The corner blitz that got home, right. Sack fumble, you start in the red zone, Georgia punches it in. Drop zone coverage against Quinn Ewers, confused him on the edge, put Georgia in the red zone again. I just don't think that Georgia is going to be able to do that same thing again against a Steve Sarkisian-led offense, which means it's going to be more about the players on the field. I think, Georgia's going to take some shots and hit them. Texas is going to take some shots and hit them. I like Texas in the game in this one. I'm going to take Texas by 2 in overtime, finding a way win the SEC championship.
And I was like, the injuries on Texas side does matter.
That's the Banks kid. I'm telling you, like that, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss last game. You need all the soda. You don't want to be walking through the hot gates. You want to hope that the guy with the hunchback shows you the goat path to go get.
I also don't think
he was the main culprit last time.
Yeah,
he was the one getting beat.
Yeah, I'd help him out.
I also just don't think it's enough for Texas fans to be like, oh, you know what? We got packages for Arch Manning now, and we saw what Haynes King did for Georgia Tech against Georgia. Let's just throw a couple more Arch Manning packages, and for sure we'll be good. That can help. Let's have some of that at the ready, but that's just not enough against Kirby Smart. You need to have the whole package going.
For sure.
Did y'all ever think this late in the season that we would be going, hey, Texas doesn't have Quinn Ewers. They don't have Haynes King. What?
Yeah.
We never thought we'd be saying that. Golly, the Ewers has fallen off pretty bad this year and really struggled at times, and especially against Georgia. He was seeing some ghosts for sure with their disguise package they brought to the table.
Well, this has been a surprise year all around. David Pollack, you're the man. We appreciate you joining us, brother. Tell everybody where they can find you. The podcast, the work that you're doing, it's fantastic stuff. I try and catch as much as possible. Please tell our audience where they can find it.
You can find me on the YouTube. I'm still learning that world, I told you guys. But how about this? This is the craziest thing that you'll ever see from a dumb defensive lineman. I also wrote a children's book. Like, that's
really
crazy. Never thought that would happen. It's called The Won't Quit Kid. And it's actually, if you go to bravebooks.com, you can find it. It's Won't Quit Kid. And so many people are quitting sports at a high rate. Like, by 13 now, 60% of kids are quitting. And sports is such a great teacher in life. So I actually wrote a book to kind of parents and the kids. And so how about that? You never thought your boy would do that.
I'm ordering one right now.
You never surprised me, dude.
I tell you what,
me? You never surprised me. Y'all go check that out. DP, thanks again for joining us, brother. You're the best.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Hey,
Thanks,
David
man.
Pollack. Go check it out. Go buy that book.
I'd bet on Georgia.
I'm getting Adam one for Christmas.
Yeah, the man
already.
doesn't miss. All right, I know we're running a little behind, Coney. So do we want to get to calls? What do you want to do here?
Do you want to do our locks, leans, and dogs?
Yeah, I was going to do them at the bets at the end.
Okay, let's do that then. Let's go to Michael in Texas on the line. Michael,
right,
talk
quick.
to us on this Friday.
Before I start, I got to tell you guys, and the Booster Club will back me on it, the over did hit. David, you said his name twice.
Oh, yeah.
I screwed it. Look, I threw a pick on the first
We were
drive.
due, man.
Yeah, I threw a pick on the first
I just
drive.
abandoned it after.
Jalen Mill wrote it
okay.
versus Vanderbilt.
Okay, I was about to get on David's head. All right, so first off, David, how nice is it that we can watch the Big Ten title game and not have to see any scarlet or gray on our TV?
I know.
After we literally broke those boys down there. We may not be repeating, but we should probably let them win it.
Are we going to the Meineke Car Care Bowl? Probably. Yeah, maybe not even that. But you know what? It's all smiles. It's all smiles for me.
Can't hurt me.
Can't hurt me, David Pollack. David Pollack, what if Oregon comes in? I don't care.
Yeah.
If they win the Natty, how are y'all going to feel?
Huh?
Like,
They win the
you
Natty,
just look
what's
at the
the
two
feeling
fan
like?
bases
Stop.
right now.
I'm saying.
You can just see how we are and how the Buckeyes are, and it is amazing how a certain rivalry game, how a certain result can change your outlook on the rest of the year, regardless if you're going to the playoff or not.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you elevate one.
Yeah, must be nice.
Like that.
Yeah,
Must be
playoffs.
nice,
That's a
guys.
cool thing.
Yeah.
Wonder what that's like.
But with that being said, I wanted to jump in and give his quick predictions real quick on the conference title games. I think Georgia will take it. I think it's going to be a late pick six to make it a 2-score victory for Georgia in the SEC title game. I think the Oregon-Penn State game is going to be a little bit tighter because I think one factor that hasn't been mentioned is that Oregon has to travel all the way across the country to Indiana to play Penn State. And I know they should be used to it by now, but I think that could be a factor. It could be an ugly game, but I think Oregon will win it by a field goal at the last second. ACC title game. I love to pick SMU, but it's kind of what David said. Clemson they're the old man of the ACC as far as making it to the title game, and that veteranocity is going to show, and I think they're going to beat SMU by, I'm going to say 10 points. Big 12, I'm on the Sun Devil train. I'm on the Scatterbo train. Give me the Sun Devils in that one by 17. And then tonight, I think Boise State's going to take it, and I think Genty is going to have a 300-yard, 3-touchdown game, and he's going to put a lot of pressure on Travis Hunter for the Heisman. It's going to come down to that.
All right, Mike. We going to see you, buddy.
Appreciate it, Michael.
Can I get one more prediction real fast?
Just quick, yeah.
I think with all the parity, I think it's going to be the more things change, the more things stay the same. And I think Georgia, at the end of the day, is going to win it all. I know the parity is great, but I think things are going to stay the same. So Georgia will be national champions this year. That's my prediction.
All right. Thanks,
Wow.
Michael.
300 yards.
Let's go to Seth in Georgia. What's going on, Seth?
Hey, boys. I left a super chat a couple days ago stating I have a system plan to replace all this mess and fix it. So here I am putting my money where my mouth is.
Let's do it.
I have solutions to fix the regular season scheduling and postseason, but first I have to preface it with a philosophical question. Do y'all think that fans and officials are truly ready for a fair system based purely on merit, or do you think fans actually love arguing over hypotheticals and transitive properties?
The latter.
Well, I think
the chat,
fans.
my
I
guy.
think fans and officials aren't the one. I think are the money. Do the money people want a fair system? That's what it's. Those are the ones making the decisions.
Well, I think this system could deliver on the money.
Okay,
as well.
Hit me.
Okay, so the three big points, and I know some of this is going to include some dirty words to those money people to start with, but you got to hear me out. Point number one, the system would involve relegation and promotion. That's one of those dirty words. A 60-team Series A, 60-team Series B, and a Series C consisting of some FCS teams that you'd have to move up to to balance it. Point 2, a fixed seeding for a 16-team playoff that rotates matchups between 4 15-team divisions. So, for example, if the first seed in the Southeast plays the Northeast 4th seed the first year, then the first seed from the Southeast would play the West team 4th seed the next year, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Third point, 13-game regular season, no conference championships, but you only play those divisional opponents.
Okay.
So you would get a conference champion without a championship game, and you would for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, have your 4 best teams for the 4 seeds that each division gets.
Okay.
So those are my main points. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So I figured like the relegation and promotion part would have more questions than anything. So it would be a 5-up, 5-down system. So the 5 lowest, the teams with the 5 worst records from Series A would fall down to Series B, and vice versa.
Okay.
So like the 5 best would move up. For other postseason type games, you have an 8-team NIT for the teams that didn't make the Series A, the national championship 16-team playoff. So the next 8 best teams. For Series B, this is your group of 5 playoff that y'all have been talking about and asking for. You have your 8-team Series B playoff, and then you can also have a Series C playoff, and that would be like the FCS playoffs are now.
Okay. Yeah.
So to set these divisions, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Keep going.
So to set these divisions in place, you would all these solutions eliminate committees, opinions, subjectiveness, and any kind of monkey business.
Yeah.
So to set the divisions as well, you would have to set geographic points that the divisions would draw the teams from, and they would be based simply on distance. So I have Jacksonville, Boston, Des Moines, and Las Vegas as the 4 points. And since there are more teams on the East Coast than there are on the West Coast, you start from the East. So Jacksonville would get the 15 closest teams first.
Okay.
Then Boston would get the 15 closest. And then Des Moines would get the 15 closest. And then, the last 15, since there are far less teams on the West Coast, would go to the West Division.
All right. I mean, look, I don't hate it. I just think that they'll, that's just a lot of moving parts. But
this great call, man. Is going to be pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, Seth, I love the thought that went into that, though. I mean, I don't hate it.
Great call. Let's bring back the BCS.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it, man. I want to see it laid out visually.
Yeah, I want to see it. Seth, send it. If you can send us like a pamphlet or something, I can look at it.
All right, let's go to Tennyson in Texas. What's up, Tennyson?
Well, I think I've finally gotten over it.
Finally gotten over it, huh?
The A&M loss?
All joking aside, though, I actually have. I'm not just here to be negative. But I mean that wasn't great.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you guys, what grade would you guys give Elko for his first year? I'd give him a B. You lose the Texas game, and yes, you go 8-4, and Texas is going to make a lot of jokes about 8-4, but you do win. You do win a top 10 game at home. You do beat some good teams. It seems like you have the program going in a good direction. You signed a good recruiting class. I'm actually, this is probably the happiest I've been with 8-4 in a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tennyson, I would give him an A-. I mean, dude, you were in the college football playoff until the last week in your first year with a freshman quarterback. I think if you just look at the way that A&M operates, I don't think, every season or every record is created the same. I would give him an A-, man. Again, it sucks. You blew a huge opportunity, lost a big ability of bragging rights, and it was at home. So that means you got to go to Texas next year. But if I'm an A&M fan, I feel better about the future under Elko than I ever did under Fisher.
I'd probably just give you a B- because you lost to Auburn. How do you give up 40?
Yeah, how do you lose to Auburn?
How
That's true.
Yeah, I have no idea.
You gave up 43 points to Auburn.
We couldn't tackle. That's how we lost to South Carolina. Which, by the way, if you win one of those games, maybe 2, but one of those, we're having a much different conversation
for
today.
sure.
Yeah.
But do you guys, the reason I ask though is, do you worry that, A&M is falling behind in the NIL race or the recruiting race, or do you think that the shine of A&M's program is because they said, oh, A&M tried the new coach, they tried the new everything, and they still went 8-4. Now Texas is in the SEC, and they could go and win the SEC their first year in the conference. How bad do you think it could get if Texas does that? How far does that set us back?
Well, I mean, look, A&M, y'all still rich, right?
I mean, it doesn't seem like we're obviously not going out there spending the money. At least that I'm seeing, we're not getting busy.
Well, I think Elko may be going about it a little bit of a different way. I'm going to wait till I see how it works in the transfer portal before I say anything about that. Look, it hurt A&M's brand a little bit, but you guys are still going to be around. It's still going to be fine. What helped Auburn, get Cam Newton and go win the national championship in 2010? Watching Nick Saban win a national championship at Alabama. Like, what made Alabama start caring about basketball? Bruce Pearl started balling at Auburn and went to a Final Four. So, look, sometimes your rival doing big things can help you out, can push you over the edge. So,
true.
Great call, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Tennyson.
Thanks, Tennyson.
All right, that's it for this week. Thank y'all for calling.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Let's go ahead and throw up locks, leans, and dogs real quick. We go and throw up here we go. So what I like. All right, my locks. Give me Oregon -2.5 at -120. I really, really like that bet. It's at, I think, 3.5. I bought it down to 2.5. Then Tulane Army tonight under 45.5. We know the way that Army operates. This Tulane defense has had time to prepare for that offense as well. John Summerall, his name's being linked all over the place, but I think they're going to be locked in. Give me that under 45.5 at -110. Then my leans. I like Boise State to win. I love UNLV to cover. Give me UNLV plus 4.5 at -112. Then Arizona State on the money line. Look, sometimes you got to hit the believe sign. I believe in Dillingham and what they're doing at Arizona State. That's at -118. And then my dogs. Rough. UGA money line plus 120. Fight me. Clemson money line plus 120. Dabo Sweeney in his 875th game coached at Clemson. I just made that number up, but it seems like it. Give me them on the money line.
I love it. All right. I'm locking in Arizona State at -118. Let's go Kenny Dillingham. Cam Scatterbo. I love it. Playing for the conference championship, even though I had you winning like 3 games, something like that. I'm also going to lock in Oregon -3.5, -110. Look, Penn State, prove me wrong. I'd love to see it, and I'd love the chaos. I'm leaning Texas money line, just like I said with David Pollack. That's -142 on the odds. I also am leaning the under for the SEC championship game. That's under 50 right now. I think those odds are -110. I think it's going to be a bit of a slugfest, especially early. And then for my dogs, give me Army plus 164 tonight, taking on Tulane. Some good value right there for a team that's only lost 1 game. And then give me Clemson plus 120 on the odds as my second dog.
Right.
All right, let's stay hot. We're hot in this room, boys.
We are hot in this room.
We cleared yesterday.
How about that David Montgomery first touchdown?
First touchdown.
He didn't take the bet. Now
we got a donation. We got a donation.
Oh, we got a donation? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get to mine. UNLV plus 4.5. That's going off at -114. I believe this is going to be a close football game. May even go into overtime for my locks. Then Army Tulane under 45.5 -110. Tulane, as high-powered offense they are, they keep the ball. They're top 5 in the country in possession on offense. And y'all know what Army does on offense. I don't have to explain that. Give me my leans. I'm also going Oregon -2.5. I bought that down a point to -120. Penn State has to prove it to me that they can win in the big game. And I'm also going Texas -2.5. Trust me, it's hard to bet against Kirby Smart in big moments, but this Georgia team's a little bit different. I like Texas. And for my dogs, baby, give me Clemson too. I'm riding with the boys. Money line plus 105 there, but I'm going to ride with them with plus 120. Then Arizona State, all right? This game, if you picked at money line, it'd be a -118 like David did. But I played this spread up. I like Arizona State in this football game by a touchdown at least, just like DP said. Give me Arizona State -3.5 plus 122.
All right, let's get to our bets for tonight only. All right, same one I got on locks, leans, and dogs. Give me UNLV plus 4.5 at -112. Then I'm going to take Jacksonville State and Tulane on the money line at plus 134. Jacksonville State hosting Western Kentucky conference championship game. It's at Jacksonville State. Little double-up parlay there at plus 134.
All right. We all believe UNLV will keep it close then, because I'm going to take UNLV plus 4.5 -112 as well. Then give me Jacksonville State money line -180. Old Rich Rod and the boys. Huh?
All right. Both my locks for locks, leans, and dogs are today, so they will be my bets today. Give me UNLV plus 4.5 -115. Army Tulane under 45.5 -110.
All right, Ace, what you got? He's going to take the under for UNLV Boise at 57.5. That's -110. Then Army, The Black Knights plus 4.5 at minus 108. Let's keep getting paid.
All right,
let's get to the
Let's get these donations. Y'all donated today, guys. Really appreciate it on this side. Really helps out the show. $10 donation from Charles Sharrow. Heath is down bad since he didn't tell you, Crain. After Montgomery scored, he went crazy and took all of his frustration out on someone's car window. He really...
No way.
He really needs a lock. Give him another chance. He really needs to get out.
Plus 550,
he really needs to get out of the country.
Yeah, plus 550. I can't give it to you.
You don't deserve another lock.
Like, why should I give you? I mean, I hate to be that way. Why would I put myself out there? Why am I putting my reputation on the line when I'm out here just handing you gold?
What's the lock, Crain?
Look, here's the lock. Ashton Genty, 300 rushing yards.
Yeah. Here's the lock. You want to know the lock of tonight? Give me. Ugh.
Whatever you say, I'm picking the opposite because it can't happen twice.
Like I don't want to run out of magic, man. It's like Jordan Hare. He stole all the magic out of there. I mean, it's got to be the Tulane Army under.
Yeah, come on, baby.
It's got to be that. But I mean,
wow.
I don't feel bad for you if it doesn't hit. I don't. I literally gave you a monster, a whale. I'm basically Moby Dick out here.
Just feel bad for me because I have a lot of money on it.
I mean, you know how much Spitzbuben you can buy with plus 550 money?
If you don't know what that is, trust me, you can't afford it. $5 donation from RJ. Appreciate it, RJ. What makes it so hard to use the playoff format that the FCS uses? And Jake, Blaine, and David also wanted to check up to see how y'all are mentally. How you doing mentally, folks?
Oh, mentally, I'm dialed in.
Yeah?
I'm dialed in. There's no amount of chaos. There's no amount of chaos in this thing that could get me down.
Look, I take care of my mental and my chicken.
Like, my car got broken in. They tried to steal it. I got broken into this morning, but that can't hurt me.
That car's been through some things.
Yeah, it's already been stolen once. I get to come up here and do a show that I love. I got a loving family, a pretty girlfriend. I mean, what's wrong with my life? $5 donation from Carson. Appreciate it, Carson. Says people like to forget that the dominance of the SEC began the college football playoff to begin with. 09 Alabama, 10 Auburn, 11 Alabama, 12 Alabama, Bama, LSU, Natty, and 11 is what started it all.
All right, I'm gonna check back with you in a second on that one.
Okay, $10 donation from Jackson. Appreciate it, Jackson. How do we get accountability across college football, guys? Administration of conferences, referees, media bias, and playoff selection committee. The fans are getting screwed to improve bottom lines with zero accountability.
Yeah, you'd have to hit them in the pocketbook, but that's not going to happen. They're going to keep making money because the on-field product's been great.
Let's go to a $10 donation from the electrician. He's also young. Should an SEC team move to the Big 12 just to make ease the playoffs every year?
Should an SEC team move to the Big 12?
They just took Texas and Oklahoma.
Why I can't handle that. I just can't handle that right now. I can't handle it.
Let's go to a $5 donation from Garrett. Appreciate it, Garrett. Why are they treating the committee like it's something life or death? It's football, not Area 51. The meeting should be publicly shown on TV.
Welcome home.
You want to talk about ratings?
Welcome home. I've been saying that forever. Please, let's hang out. Drink a beer.
Imagine if they shot it like Hard Knocks.
Yeah. What a great 30 for 30 would that be behind this.
I think there's a great opportunity for a spoof from these three guys right here.
I agree.
About the committee. Let's go to a $10 donation from Shane. Appreciate it, Shane. With that sweater, I see what they call Blaine Flaming Dragon. Hilarious.
Nice, good.
On a serious note, what do y'all think the UGA's keys are to victory this week?
We've got a full breakdown of that game right on our YouTube channel. Go check it out, Georgia-Texas breakdown. Just talked about it, too, yesterday a little bit as well. Go check out that full preview.
$5 donation from the Gambling Man. Oregon money line plus Eagles money line minus 115 is my big bet of the weekend. Oregon indoors. James Franklin wants points. He's going to see them. Cocky Lanning wins again.
That's his BBW, big bet of the weekend.
$10 donation from David. Appreciate it, David. Dragon, I don't know if you saw in AA, but I want to apologize for the aggressive super chat when I told you to man up. I have disagreed with your takes about Florida, but I lost my cool with David. It's cool. Trust me, nothing can hurt me, brother, unless you try to steal my car. $5 donation from Sam. Appreciate it, Sam. What happens to common opponents between USC and Bama? Come on, fellas.
Well, I mean, hold on. Are you arguing like what happened, or are you arguing like using common? But I think Pollack was talking about using common opponents and then said that the committee doesn't do what they say when they're going to use common
between Bama and South Carolina?
Correct.
You don't get to common opponents because the head-to-head would be before that. Right?
Yeah.
Correct. Now, he was talking about common opponents
in
with
general.
Ole Miss and Alabama because they didn't play each other.
All right, let's go to a $20 donation from Cal. Appreciate it, Cal. All I've heard against South Carolina is head-to-head. Last year's FSU out because of QB hurt, Sellers hurt against LSU. Then earlier, Tennessee behind Alabama and LSU behind South Carolina in rankings with the same committee this year. Move goalposts every week for Bama, it feels like.
Well, it's just that the playoff committee has contradicted themselves so many times, to your point, that you can't believe what they say. Now, if you're asking me personally, when I look at South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Alabama, when it's that close in those three, head-to-head has to matter. It's the first tiebreaker of making the conference championship as well, which David has brought up.
$5 donation from Droll13. If Milroe plays to his ceiling, we can win against most. If not, oh boy, hold on and watch the good time Bama fans ship off Milroe and DeBoer.
Colorado? I thought that was
Really?
an interesting thing earlier.
All right, last donation of the day, $5 donation from Donnie P_7. Appreciate it. Says, hey, guys, took y'all's bets yesterday. Absolutely swimming in cash. Keep it going, fellas. Y'all are an absolute heater. Right?
Oh, God, isn't it great? Let's just keep it going. I wish Heath would listen.
All right, yeah, let's get to this poll. Who wins Saturday? Texas.
Georgia. You're first.
David.
Georgia, 56%.
Texas, 51%.
Georgia, 51%. Texas, 49%. The reason that game's 2.5 points.
Tight. All right. Appreciate David Pollack. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you check out That Responsible Man. We are live streaming the selection show on Sunday starting at 11 a.m. Central. Live on YouTube, X, Daily Wire, everywhere. Make sure you are locked in. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be recapping the conference championship games. We typically do the Sunday recap. We're going to recap first, tell you what we think about the playoff bracket, then watch the reveal and react. And I'm sure it's going to be measured and everybody's just going to get along and agree with the committee. And like the chances of this weekend not being awesome, enjoy the football while we got it. We're going.
Whew, kid's been hot.
Gone. God, that almost hit the sky.